They might just get caught red-handed. Today on Caught Red-Handed, Berinda is at home with her tiny newborn baby girl when suddenly her peace is shattered. 3 burglars break into her house.
The first male who seen me shouted, "Guys, guys," and ran back.
Surprised to find someone's in the house, the men run away. But they come back, and it's the beginning of a shocking deal for her.
He was saying, "If no gold, kill the baby." And that's where I was like, "No, please don't do anything to the baby."
Also today, Mike's built a company from scratch, selling board games and other games that are played with highly collectible, valuable cards. But then he's dealt a bad hand when he discovers a mystery member of staff has been stealing cards from him, tens of thousands of pounds worth.
I remember almost wanting to collapse to my knees at the extent of what was stolen. I was completely broken.
But Mike also has a card up his sleeve in the form of a hidden camera. He's hoping to reveal which of his employees is a criminal cheat. Most burglars will run off if they realise they've been seen or heard. So what happened at Berinda's house is, I must stress, extremely rare. But it was a truly terrifying series of events. Berinda and her husband JP live in Wrexham with their 2 daughters, Avikar and Jesslyn. JP's a customer trading manager and Berinda's a pharmacist. They met and were married 12 years ago in India.
Ours is a typical Indian arranged marriage. My husband is my biggest strength since we got married, and he has always supported me.
They came to live in Wrexham where JP had studied, and they both worked locally. 11 years on, and they now have a settled home life with the daughters they cherish. But life hasn't always been easy for them.
There is 9 years age gap between both daughters, and there is quite a long gap because I had the unfortunate miscarriage in between. That was quite a shocking experience.
When Berinda fell pregnant again several years later, she was overjoyed, but also anxious after what had happened before. And 7 months into her pregnancy, she worried something was wrong.
I started feeling like that I'm not feeling any baby movements.
She was taken to hospital and had to have her baby delivered by an emergency cesarean.
My daughter is born and she was only 1.6 kg, which is around 3 pounds, and she was very little.
Tiny Jesslyn received intensive care, and Berinda was eventually able to bring her home 7 weeks later.
I was looking forward to it, and my elder daughter, she was excited, but deep down I was scared as well because I have to look after her on my own, which is just a very small baby.
But then, one day, while she's still recovering from her cesarean and is at home alone with her precious premature baby, Berinda's house is invaded by a violent gang looking for jewellery. On a Friday afternoon, just 9 days after bringing baby Jesslyn home, Berinda notices some men in a van outside pointing at their house.
It was a little bit suspicious. You know, that gut feeling was that there is something wrong gonna happen.
Berinda calls the police's non-urgent number 101 to log the incident and tell them the registration plate of the van. That done, she thought little more of it over the weekend.
Comes the Monday, my husband went to work, and that was the first day my older daughter was back to school. So I was just on my own with the little baby.
Their house has 2 CCTV cameras, one in the back garden and this one overlooking the front, which early that Monday afternoon shows a man wearing a face mask who walks up the drive and knocks on the door. Berinda is trying to get much needed sleep upstairs in her bedroom, but she views the camera feed on her phone and sees the man.
I just thought, it's a bogus caller, he'll go. Yeah, when I won't answer, he'll just go.
The man walks off up the road. Then a few minutes later, two different men walk around the back of the house. They have a screwdriver, and one of them begins trying to force the rear glass door open. Another man walks around the house to join them. The man trying to force the door gives up with the screwdriver and picks up a brick. The glass is double glazed, so he violently throws the brick again. Upstairs, Barinda hears the noise.
I heard that there is a bang bang at the back of my house, and I realized that somebody is trying to break in.
Barinda's frightened and wants to get out of the house. She rushes to pick up baby Jesslyn.
But I wasn't that quick because of the wound still healing and everything.
The men finally break through the door and rush in just as Barinda is leaving her bedroom.
The first male who seen me shouted, "Guys, guys," and ran back.
The burglars run outside, startled to have found someone in. But just a moment later, they return to the house, even though they now know that a mother and baby are inside. Coming back in, they prevent Barinda from getting downstairs.
3 males are approaching, and first thought was like, God, what are they? Are they carrying weapons or something?
Terrified, Barinda cuddles tiny newborn Jesslyn close to her as the men approach menacingly. They aggressively start taking her jewellery.
They took my wedding ring and snatched my gold chain from my neck and then pushed me towards the bedroom.
Then one of the men does something unthinkable. He horrifies Barinda by grabbing Jesslyn from her and rolls the baby onto the bed.
How dare somebody snatch my baby from my arms and roll her onto bed like 8-week-old baby? How can somebody even think about doing that?
The men are shouting, ransacking drawers, demanding more gold jewellery, but they don't give time for Barinda to respond, and one of them starts violently hitting her.
I was in the state of shock because they punched me on my face and in the abdomen, and where my wound was still healing. I was thinking that we are gonna die in next few minutes.
Then, shockingly, one of the burglars threatens to harm her baby.
He was saying, if no gold, kill the baby. And that's where I was like, no, please don't do anything to the baby. And I pointed towards the wardrobe, just leave us alone, take whatever you want, don't harm my baby.
The men start ransacking the wardrobe Barinda has pointed to.
And I was thinking that even when they will find gold, they are gonna hit me with something so that, like, I might not be able to survive, or my baby might not be able to survive.
But when they find some gold jewellery, finally they leave.
I again took my baby into my arms, was scared that they are still there, but somehow managed that strength to come downstairs to get out of the house.
Outside, Barinda quickly phones her husband and then the police, panicked that the burglars could return again.
But then in the meantime, the neighbor's car came. When he came, it was a bit of thing that, oh God, somebody is around. And literally 5 to 7 minutes, police and my husband were there.
She can finally begin to feel safer. Later, with these cruel and dangerous criminals still at large, Barinda desperately hopes the police will be able to catch them.
I was praying to God because I was worried that they will come back and hurt us again.
And it turns out the first man who knocked on the door but didn't go into the house could be the key to catching this gang. A camera has been hidden amongst the shelves of a warehouse full of valuable games and merchandise. An unknown staff member's been stealing thousands of pounds worth of stock, and the owner needs to find out who has been double dealing him. Mike runs an online retail business from his warehouse in North London, selling card games, board games and merchandise. There's a huge global market in strategy and fantasy games, such as Pokemon and Magic the Gathering, where players collect special cards used in the gameplay. Some of these cards become collector's items. A single one can be worth thousands of pounds. Mike was a keen player of games himself as a boy.
I played a game called Magic the Gathering, and I didn't play it for a long time, and I went to university, and friends of mine were playing the game, so I was like, oh, I used to play this when I was a kid. So I got my old cards and started playing. But when I left university, I looked to sell all my cards.
Mike made some money, and it gave him an idea.
I was like, oh, this is pretty good. Oh, I can buy and sell cards and make a few extra quid here.
He eventually became a full-time trader working out of his family home.
And hired my first member of staff in my parents' house.
Mike now employs more than 40 staff, and appropriately for a company based on games, he likes it to be a fun place to work.
We often have after-work game nights. In a very digital age, it's nice to have something that brings people together, and there's a lot of fun to be had as well.
He's proud of what he's achieved building a business from scratch.
It's been an astronomical amount of work. I can't begin to tell you the amount of lost weekends. I owe something to my staff as well. They've all worked hard for me. But if you see where it was where I started with me and a few hundred cards, and you're like, oh wow, that's amazing.
But in the games business, as in all others, Mike discovers not everyone plays by the rules. It's a busy time at the warehouse in the lead up to Christmas, when one of Mike's managers notices that some collectible Pokemon cards are missing.
We were concerned, but given how hectic Christmas can be, you expect a certain level of error to be made.
They decide they'll have to leave it until after the Christmas holidays to investigate. And by the time they do, they discover that even more cards have disappeared.
The customer would purchase it, we would go to pick the item and it wasn't there. We realised at that point that we'd have someone stealing.
It's a personal shock for Mike.
We've ran the business for years on trust. We didn't have any security or cameras in the place at that time, so figuring out who that person was obviously going to be difficult.
Confiding in only a few trusted staff, Mike believes it's likely that the cards have been stolen to sell on. So he does some amateur sleuthing and searches online marketplace sites for any cards being sold that may have come from his business.
And we found a particular seller, and a lot of the products that were up for sale were products that we had stock discrepancies for. It was kind of terrifying.
Mike finds the seller has an online store selling cards, and it looks like they are his stolen cards. Pages and pages of them.
You kind of start doing the math in your head and you're like, this is a lot of money.
Delving deeper into this dodgy online store, Mike finds its rough location is within 5 miles of his warehouse, which would fit with a member of his staff being the thief. Mike calls the police to see what they can do.
The answer I got was we wouldn't do anything without hard proof, and that hard proof was camera footage.
He borrows some cameras from a friend and he hides them around his warehouse where most stock has gone missing.
We hid them as high as possible. The cameras were motion activators, so if someone walked past them, they would activate. And then I'd be able to view the footage remotely on my phone. It was just a waiting game at that point to see if I was lucky enough to catch someone.
Mike doesn't have to wait long. This camera is triggered first thing in the morning while he's at home.
I looked at the camera footage and I was like, oh, this person's working. I was like, that's fine. And then I noticed him going to a box and I'm like, this box isn't up for sale. What's he doing? And then I noticed him taking things out of the box and putting them into his pocket. And at this point, I was shocked. The person in question I hadn't anticipated would be the person that would be stealing. The betrayal of trust was really hurtful.
Mike calls the police and meets the officers at the warehouse.
The whole situation was surreal. I was furious, but I was like, I've caught you now. I have the upper hand now, so to speak.
They lead the member of staff into one of the offices.
They asked him if he had anything on him that he shouldn't have. He pulled out these cards and he said, I found these.
They're the Pokemon cards he'd just taken. He tries speaking to Mike.
He said, "Mike, what's all this about?" So I for the whole event, I didn't say a word.
The police take the man to his locker where he keeps a bag.
And they found even more stock in the bag. He was like, "I'm so sorry, Mike. It's just this, I promise you." I knew he was lying because I found the store.
The police arrest the man and take him to search where he is living so that he doesn't have a chance to hide anything. The officers discover a massive hoard of over 2,000 cards. Mike's in disbelief when he finds out.
I remember almost wanting to collapse to my knees at the extent of what was stolen. I was completely broken, just demoralised and broken.
Mike estimates that this hoard of cards alone is worth £40,000, and he knows that there's still more outstanding because he's seen them for sale on the man's online store.
It was heartbreaking because this can destroy a business.
He's badly affected.
My life was kind of torn apart, so to speak. My trust in people just diminished to nothing. I was just upset constantly.
Over time, the thief is believed to have stolen up to £60,000 worth of cards in total. To add to what's already been recovered, months later, he eventually returns another hoard of cards.
About £12,000 worth of goods, so I was happy to have those items returned back to me.
But in court, the judge wants the thief to pay even more for his crime. The man was sentenced to 16 months in prison, suspended for 2 years. He was ordered to carry out 175 hours of unpaid work and pay Mike's business £10,000 in compensation.
To be able to have some compensation back was unexpected, and I was happy with it.
Mike's learned from the bad experience. He's now installed new cameras in the warehouse and increased security to be on the safe side. He plans to have just good times from now on.
I was definitely relieved that the whole situation could finally be put behind me. I felt like an air of calm fall over me. So now we can move the business forward, but also maintain a level of vigilance now to ensure that an instance like this never occurs again. But I'm happy to put this behind me.
It was CCTV that helped Mike catch his culprit, and it can be valuable in helping protect our businesses and our homes. But what should we consider before installing security cameras?
Make sure you think about where they are in terms of, are they within easy reach of any potential suspect? If a suspect can identify where they are and where the cabling is, it's possible that they could disable the system or that particular camera to avoid detection.
We need to be careful where we place our cameras to ensure we get the best facial image of the offender. We also need to make sure that our cameras are kept clean and in working order.
The quality of CCTV images is really important. It can be make or break between a conviction or non-conviction.
Do a test run, have a look at your images and see, does it give you clarity of your vehicle or of your property? Things like when you park your car on the drive, park the car towards the camera, and that way if someone does get into the driver's seat to try and steal your car, you get a great facial image.
If our CCTV captures something that's going to be of use to the police, it's really important that it doesn't get recorded over. So make sure that you download it as soon as possible, or otherwise keep it safe, because we don't want it to get recorded over and therefore not available for investigators.
This is the most illegal and dangerous piece of driving you are likely to see. This is a works van, which has a security camera. But this reckless potato delivery driver has obviously forgotten he's being recorded. As he goes through a horrifying list of actions no one must ever do when behind the wheel of a vehicle. First on the list, littering. But then, much more seriously, he moves on to drink driving. And he's literally drink driving. That's champagne he's swigging, and worse, with only one hand on the wheel. Now it's no hands. He's actually rolling a cigarette. This is a van, remember, that he's driving with his knees only, and not slowly either. This isn't just driving without due care and attention as he starts texting. This is driving without any care or attention. But the smile is about to be wiped off his face. Not surprisingly, this dangerous behaviour ends in a crash. And any secret smile we might all get at the thought of him getting his comeuppance is also wiped away when we learn he has ploughed into a family of 5 in their car with 3 children in the back seat. Mercifully, no one was injured, but their car was a write-off. And this dashcam footage was sent off to the police by the van's appalled owner after he viewed what his employee was up to before he crashed it. Convicted of dangerous driving, he was banned from driving for 32 months and sentenced to 8 months in prison for this offence. And because he was already on a suspended sentence for other offences, he was given a further 8 months and imprisoned for 16 months in total. In Wrexham, Berinda is still reeling from the horrifying ordeal she and baby daughter Jesslyn suffered when a violent gang smashed their way into her house to steal jewellery. They punched Berinda in the face and stomach and rolled her precious newborn baby, who's only just come out of intensive care, onto a bed and threatened her.
Why they hit me? Why they snatched my baby from me? Why they threatened me to kill the baby? I was scared, I was vulnerable anyways. If they would have simply asked me in a loud voice, where is your gold? I would have told them.
The police and her husband JP have just arrived. JP is stunned when he hears what his wife and their tiny baby daughter have been through.
It was tough for him as well to be strong for us, but deep inside he was hurt as well.
Berinda still hadn't completely recovered from an emergency caesarean operation a couple of months earlier. Police officers call for an ambulance.
Because of the punch on my face and the punch in the abdomen, that was hurting as well.
Crime scene investigators sweep the house for forensic evidence. JP is able to show officers on his phone what their CCTV cameras have recorded.
Police officers took those videos and circulated within their network.
Images are sent to officers across Wrexham of the 3 men who entered the house, the 4th man who originally knocked on the front door. An appalling home invasion like this is extremely rare, and the police treat it as a very serious incident, quickly mobilising all available resources to find the gang. And it pays off immediately when they identify and arrest this man in the city centre.
Whilst we were still waiting for the ambulance, we heard that someone he was seen in the same clothes, and they have found some piece of jewellery in their pocket.
Through other inquiries, police also managed to discover and seize the van they believe the gang used to case Berinda's house a few days before their raid. It's put through forensic tests. Berinda's pleased that one of the men has been caught so quickly, but it's tinged with disappointment as well.
Yes, he's an offender, but the people who are actually the criminals, in my eyes, are still not caught.
An ambulance arrives to take Berinda and baby Jesslyn to hospital. They are given the all-clear from serious injury and return home the next day. Berinda is thankful her older daughter Avikar was at school at the time the men broke in, and Jesslyn is too young to remember. But for Berinda herself, scars remain.
The psychological effects are still there. Doesn't matter how brave I try or something, but yes, it's not the same. I'm not the same woman as I was before this incident.
The thing that will most help Berinda is if the rest of the criminals are caught.
I was sort of praying to God to bring the police enough evidence.
Then police get a breakthrough. It comes from the man they have already arrested and put in prison on remand. He doesn't realise phone calls are automatically recorded in prison, and a phone conversation with his brother reveals that the brother is involved.
like them talking about how one is gonna get caught. So that phone call was quite a good link.
Forensic results come back from the van that had been used to scout Burinda's house.
There was quite a bit of forensic work which actually linked that van to these people.
The investigators are able to identify another man who entered the house. They arrest these two suspects and officers find further evidence at their addresses.
Their clothes, and there were some bits of jewelry.
Police then discover and seize the car that the suspects used on the day of the robbery to arrive and to get away.
And their DNA is matching with the car and with the jewelry.
The investigators don't have sufficient evidence to identify the third gang member who actually entered the house. But Burinda is happy at least that the two responsible for the violence are in custody. In the end, all three suspects who have been caught admit to taking part in the crime. In court, the man who knocked on the front door is sentenced to 4 years and 2 months in prison. While the two men that entered the house and terrorised Burinda and her baby were put away for 6 years and 2 months and 7 years and 6 months respectively. Burinda will be forever grateful to the police for removing the threat of these violent men so quickly.
Police did an amazing job. They have been sentenced. That's a sort of relief that yes, something has been done about it.
But Burinda is still affected by the trauma she went through. She doesn't wear jewellery anymore and has bouts of anxiety. But step by step, she's making progress and has been able to go back to work. The family has more advanced home security, and recently Burinda had another sort of advance herself.
Every cloud has a silver lining. I learned driving as a result of that, so that nobody knows where I'm going.
And baby Jesslyn is now a happy toddler, unaware of the threat the family faced that day.
Jesslyn is absolutely brilliant. She's growing fine. She's a little munchkin. Yeah.
That's it for today. Until next time, when we see a few more criminals get caught red-handed. It's best we all keep a watchful eye out for crime. Because thieves will steal our cash, our cars, our valuables, just about anything they can get their hands on. Fortunately, there are many other eyes on the lookout too. The police, local councils and businesses are using their own tricks and traps, together with cutting-edge technology to catch the bad guys.
The key was CCTV.
A detective's dream, really.
And the public are using secret cameras to make sure the crooks get their comeuppance.
What are you doing in my house?
Put that down, that belongs to me.
I'm not gonna run away. I'm not gonna run away from this.
Everybody wanted to see that they got caught.
Fantastic. Win.
So anyone who's up to no good had better think twice. They might just get caught red-handed. Today on Caught Red-Handed, Liz runs a business grooming and walking dogs. She's just bought a new car, which is essential for her to pick up pets. But then somebody burgles her house, stealing money and driving off with her car.
Absolutely devastated. It was just like my whole world had collapsed.
But then Liz gets suspicious. With no sign of a break-in, the thief may be someone she knows.
So I was fuming, absolutely fuming.
Also today, Council Enforcement Officer Chris comes up against the worst fly tipper he has ever seen. A man who's paid by people to legally dispose of their waste is then dumping it illegally wherever he feels like it, even on other homeowners' driveways.
This was a brazen offender. He was fly tipping on an industrial scale and he was making a lot of money out of it.
Chris is in a race to stop this criminal who keeps piling on misery by the truckload. Usually burglary victims don't know the people who break into their houses, but when Liz recently suffered this crime, she suspected the culprit was someone closer to home. Liz lives in the town of Horsforth in Leeds. She used to be an accountant.
In my last proper job, as I call it, I was made redundant. I was sort of sat there thinking what to do next.
Liz had always loved animals, so she decided to switch from cutting costs for clients to cutting hair for canines. She got trained as a groomer and set about making shaggy dogs less shaggy.
I fell in love with hanging out with dogs all day, and I started doing the walking as well, so out in the wild.
Over time, customers also asked Liz to look after their cats while they're away. In fact, all creatures great and small.
It just went from strength to strength. I got guinea pigs and rabbits, a tortoise called Sheldon, he's fantastic, and African land snails that I just had to spray with water every other day and give them a bit of cucumber, so I didn't have to get them out and cuddle them or anything, thankfully.
But with the number of her pet projects increasing, Liz needed to be mobile and the car she had was unreliable.
Every time it broke down, I can't work.
Liz had to invest in a new car.
Having a brand new car has just been fantastic, and it being big enough to fit all the dogs in because it's massive.
Another problem Liz needed to sort was her house getting muddy when she was grooming dogs.
I had a lawn in the back garden. What was happening is they'd go out playing with each other and then rolling around all over the floor and just caking it in mud.
She decided to pave her back garden and researched groundwork companies to choose one that had been recommended.
The boss man popped round, seemed like absolutely lovely guy, did a quote, sounded reasonable. I just thought, yes, great. I was cutting out the things that were creating hassle in my life.
But little did Liz know that tidying up her back garden was indirectly about to bring her a whole new level of trouble. It's a Saturday and the groundwork in the back garden is almost completed. Liz has got on well with the landscaper boss and the two men he's hired to help him.
I'd stand at the back door and have a little chat with them when I had 10 minutes or whatever and make them a coffee, and I'd left the door open for them so they could come in and use the facilities. You know, they're working in my garden for like 8 hours a day sort of thing.
As it's the weekend, Liz pops out with some friends. She leaves her car parked in the street, and as the workmen will be finishing only a short while before she gets back, she's happy to leave her back door unlocked.
You can't get into my back garden without jumping a fence, and the workmen were taking a fence panel out to be able to come in and bring in the equipment and everything, and then they were putting it back at the end of the day.
When Liz returns later that day, the workmen have already left as expected, but there's something unexpected.
I was shutting the blind and I was like, sure I parked my car there. And then I was like, no, I definitely parked there.
Then Liz is shocked to see her car keys are missing and realises that it's been stolen.
My brand new car, brand new, my first brand new car that I'd ever had, gone. Yeah, absolutely devastated. To the point of tears, you know.
Her cash tin has also disappeared.
There was quite a bit of money in there, I think about £1,000, and that's pretty much my bills for the month.
Because the front doors and windows were locked and undamaged, Liz thinks the thief must have known the back door was unlocked, and she's suspicious of the landscape gardeners.
If it was anyone else, they'd have to scale the fence in the middle of the day. Someone's going to see that. So I was fuming, absolutely fuming, and text the boss man. Said, well, you guys are the only ones that have had access to my house.
By the time Liz contacts the business owner, it's late and she doesn't expect to reply until the morning. She then lodges a crime report with the police and goes to bed.
In the morning, I was obviously in a bit of a state, and the owner of the company rang, and he was just as fuming as I was. devastated that it had happened. And then they were due to come in, so he was like, I'll see you soon. So it was a bit weird because I knew that these guys were coming back and like, you're just going to carry on in my garden?
But thankfully, a police officer also rings Liz to say that he's coming to investigate.
So he arrived, and lo and behold, just as we were talking, they pulled up in the van. So there was some real comfort there knowing that he was there.
Even though all the workmen have shown up, Liz is still convinced that one of them must be responsible.
I knew it wasn't the boss guy, but either of the other two, I wasn't sure.
After taking Liz's statement and the boss's, the officer also speaks to the other workmen. Both deny any involvement.
One of them he spoke to in here where I was, distraught, crying on the sofa, and he just gave his answers. He seemed really chilled. Said at the door that he hoped that everything would work out and that I was all right and things. You know, it just seems genuine, like a nice guy, really.
With both workmen seemingly unflustered about turning up for work and answering questions, it's hard to believe that one of them could be the thief. Later, Liz's burglary provides an unusual mystery for Detective Sergeant Rob Kennelly and his team to solve.
We've got someone that's thinking he's committing the perfect crime, and it's quite frustrating that there weren't a lot of inquiries to go on.
But then a brief CCTV clip of a taxi paves the way to the truth. A red tipper truck full of rubbish is spotted on a camera. The council believe its driver could be responsible for illegally dumping huge piles of waste. Near kids' playgrounds, in the middle of the road and on other people's drives, they have never seen anything like it before. Chris Smith works for Buckinghamshire Council as an enforcement officer who deals with waste-related offences.
I've been doing this job now for nearly 12 years. I was a policeman before, so I've transferred a lot of those skills into my current job, and I enjoy it very much.
Around 1 million cases of fly tipping were reported in the UK last year alone. This growing menace is costing local authorities, and therefore the taxpayer, many millions of pounds to clear up the mess.
The one thing that gives you the buzz is actually catching the offender. They make it as difficult as they possibly can to get them to court, and it's a real achievement to get them there.
And recently, one particularly callous offender made Chris's life difficult on a level he'd never encountered before. It's summer when Chris is alerted about a large fly tip in South Buckinghamshire.
A pile of waste dumped on the grass verge next to a dual carriageway consisted of general sort of household waste. There was mattresses, there was all sorts.
Luckily for Chris, a vigilant member of the public was driving past when the waste was dumped and saw the truck leaving the scene.
They managed to film them on his mobile phone. That included the vehicle's number plate, and this was an incredibly valuable piece of evidence.
It means Chris can find out who this red tipper truck is registered to, and some further evidence is unearthed.
One of my colleagues went through this pile of waste and he managed to find a document that related to the source.
It's a letter with a northwest London address on it. Chris visits the person who lives there. They're appalled to discover that their waste has ended up being illegally dumped.
They employed an individual to take their waste away. Now they thought that this individual was legitimate. He had his high visibility jacket on and he's very convincing.
So convincing, they paid the man £800 for his work. Legitimate operators who regularly dispose of large amounts of waste at the proper centres have to pay fees to do so. But this operator has just fly-tipped it, pocketed the money and run.
And crucially, we were able to establish that the person who collected the waste was the same person who dumped the waste.
Chris can find out the truck owner's details via the number plate. But unlike the police, council enforcement officers do not have the power to arrest people and bring them in for questioning. Chris has to follow a much more formal process.
We wrote to the owner of the red truck and invited him in for interview.
Chris gets no reply. Then 12 days later, there's another fly tip in the county. Karandeep has been helping his parents by overseeing building work at a house they've bought in his area.
My parents were in Essex at the time, so I would come by every 1 or 2 days because I was close by, making sure things were on track and on schedule.
One day, Karandeep is shocked to find a massive load of someone else's waste on his parents' drive.
It was just a mountain of rubbish, about 6 foot high and probably about 10 foot wide.
Karandeep's incensed. With the help of the workmen on site, he searches the rubbish and finds an invoice with a builder's details. He calls them.
He had hired someone to dispose of the rubbish responsibly.
The builder apologises and comes straight over.
The builder showed us a certificate that the fly tipper had shown him that he's legally allowed to dispose of waste properly. He obviously realised that he'd been conned.
Doing what he can to help, the builder takes a van load of waste away himself.
So I then had to take a day leave from work. So it was me and the builders doing it all together to clean all that rubbish off the drive and take it to the recycling centres. It's frustrating that you've had to deal with this. The fly tipper had no respect for anyone or the environment. It's really heartbreaking that people do it to this extent.
Chris investigates Karandeep's fly tip, and it turns out the bogus waste handler gave the same name as the man they're already chasing. He had a red truck too.
This was a particularly callous offence because now not only has he dumped the waste illegally, he's dumped it on a private property, and it's the private landowner that has to deal with it. He can't just push it out of his property and hope the council deal with it, because then he would be fly tipping.
Soon after, the red truck tipper strikes again, this time in the countryside next to a children's play area. A horrified member of the public, out with his young daughter, takes pictures on his mobile phone of the driver and what he's dumped.
This was a brazen offender. Normally, if we start to pursue somebody, they tend to stop, but this guy just kept going.
Chris is doing everything in his power to find the culprit.
We had visited his address several times. We knocked at the house and spoke to the occupants, denied that the suspect was living there, and said that he hadn't had any contact with him for some time. So it is fair to say that we were getting very frustrated at this stage.
And when another massive pile of waste is left on the drive of someone else's property, Chris suspects it's the work of the man he's after. And a CCTV camera overlooking the only road into the area proves his instinct is right. The same offender drives into view.
It showed a red tipper truck full of waste and leaving a short time later empty. He was fly tipping on an industrial scale, and he was making a lot of money out of it.
Chris is accumulating evidence against the man, but still can't get hold of him. Then he follows a hunch. Given the man has previously collected waste in the London area, Chris approaches the Metropolitan Police to see if they have come across the offender before.
We identified a policeman that was dealing with him for some other matters, completely unrelated matters. And then he was able to tell us about Hillingdon, one of our neighbouring councils, who were also after this individual for fly tipping offences.
And then some. The 37-year-old man has been dumping huge piles of waste across the Hillingdon borough as well.
Not only was he damaging Buckinghamshire's countryside and inflicting us with pain and cost, he was doing the same to Hillingdon.
Chris, the police and the Hillingdon investigator all want to interview the suspect. And they get their chance when he is arrested for the unrelated police matters in South London.
He did speak to us, but he just denied any wrongdoing whatsoever, claiming that he had sold the vehicle sometime prior to the offences to someone who he didn't know the name and address of.
Chris believes the man is talking rubbish, but for the council investigators and the police, the charges against the man are not sufficient to hold him in custody, so he is released.
He was told that a file would be prepared and he would be taken to court.
Chris is hoping news of this legal action might finally stop the fly tipper, but he's about to be sorely disappointed. Yet another pile of rubbish is dumped in Buckinghamshire, this time completely blocking a country lane.
It was becoming ridiculous, quite frankly.
But when Chris searches through the pile, he discovers some potentially vital evidence.
I found a receipt for petrol at a local petrol station.
The suspect has been claiming he doesn't own the van anymore. If this petrol receipt is his, it could prove he's still driving it. So Chris visits the petrol station and views their CCTV recording from the time the fuel was bought. It clearly shows the suspect getting out of the red truck and then at the counter.
It was damning. He had denied any involvement in his offences when he was interviewed at the police station, yet here he is, still driving the red truck that he said he'd sold. It linked him even tighter to these offences.
Thanks to the evidence Chris has built up against him, the man has no choice. He throws out his previous defence and pleads guilty to 17 offences of fly tipping. The man was sentenced to 21 months in prison for each crime to run concurrently, and he had his truck seized. Chris was pleased to tell all those affected by this flagrant fly tipper, such as Karen Deep and his family, that he had been dumped in jail.
We were over the moon. We were just so glad that what we think is justice has actually been achieved.
This investigation was the biggest fly tipping investigation I've worked on, and it's unusual to get imprisonment for fly tipping, but to get imprisonment for such a long period was incredible but well deserved in this case.
If we need somebody to clear waste for us, then Chris has some tips on how to avoid handing money over to a fly tipper.
It's incumbent on the waste producer to check, and you can do that by checking the Environment Agency website. A legitimate waste carrier will give you their details to enable you to do that. But also, don't pay cash. If you pay by any other means, it will be traceable and there'll be a paper trail for us to follow to identify him should the worst happen and your waste is fly tipped.
Captured on a night vision camera, this man has broken into an axe throwing centre. That's an entertainment venue where people compete by throwing light axes at wooden targets to score points. And as a reminder of the power of the axe, the centre has a massive tree trunk in the middle of the room. In the dark, this burglar hasn't noticed it yet, but don't worry, he soon will, as he strolls around hoping to cut himself a slice of the axe throwing company's profits. He manages to avoid the tree, but doesn't manage to steal much. Just some power tools they use to put the targets up. Oh, and 6 packets of salt and vinegar crisps. Thankfully, the axes are securely stored away. But when a car parks nearby, the thief obviously feels it's time to get out of there. Chop chop! But he's gonna get some poetic justice when he's felled by the tree. He goes full pelt into it, hurting his knee and banging his head. He's clearly in some pain, and staggering to his feet, he lumbers out of the building. But catching him wasn't a case for special branch. Local police soon twigged who he was when they recognised him from this footage. He was arrested and ended up being jailed for 40 weeks. And he also had to suffer the indignity of the clip going viral and people logging on to laugh at him. Back in Horsforth, Leeds, Liz is left feeling low after a burglary at her house. £1,000 in cash has gone, and worse still, her new car has been stolen that she desperately needs to run her business, grooming dogs and looking after other pets.
It was just like my whole world had collapsed because, you know, but if you can't work, you don't get paid when you're self-employed.
Liz suspects that one of the labourers working for the landscape gardening company who are paving her back garden could be the thief, as she had allowed them ready access to the house.
I was disappointed in myself a little bit for trusting people. So I was just deflated, distraught, didn't really know what to think.
The police start their investigation, led by Detective Sergeant Rob Kennelly.
Liz heavily suspected the labourers, and obviously they'd then returned to the scene, so she had to deal with that. So all in all, it was a very traumatic experience for the victim.
A detective from Rob's team interviews the gardeners who had returned to Liz's house the day after the burglary, apparently normally to carry on working in the garden.
They spoke to the manager first, and the manager told them that he would pick up the lads in the morning, they'd go do the work, and then he would drop them back off at home. So the manager was quite adamant he wasn't involved, no one was involved because they'd been supervised the whole time by him at the scene.
But when Rob's detective talks to the two labourers, he is surprised because he thinks that he may have crossed paths with one of them before.
He had that sort of moment of, I know you, where do I know you, how do I know you?
Experience tells the detective not to let on the man seems familiar, and he asks him for his details. The workman is more than happy to give his name and number and more than happy to talk.
He was giving a lot of empathy for the victim, that it was really sad that this had happened, and he even provided some information saying that he'd seen a suspicious vehicle on the street and passed that as a potential line of inquiry to the detective.
But the detective's instinct has opened up another line of inquiry of his own. When he's finished talking to the man, he looks him up on the police database.
He had previous involvement in burglaries, which obviously at that point raises suspicion. However, there was plenty of possibilities that it could be someone else. This person got himself a job, he was working. As police officers, you want to believe that people can be rehabilitated. So we had to make sure that we considered all different avenues that this investigation could take us down.
But in this case, the usual avenues of investigation police use turn out to be dead ends.
None of the neighbours had seen anything. There was no obvious CCTV on the neighbouring properties. In terms of forensic evidence, the landscape gardeners, they've got access to the address, so if their fingerprints or DNA were found inside the address, well, of course they're going to be in there. There was no forensics, nothing that could progress the case.
Meanwhile, Liz has had to let her dog grooming customers know what's happened and that she can't provide her normal service.
But one of my customers said, don't worry about anything, borrow my car. She was adamant, and she was sort of saying how I'd helped them so much. She'd had an accident and I helped with looking after the pets, and it took this big burden off the family. And it was just, I was just beside myself.
Outside, the investigating officer is widening his search in Liz's street.
And quite far up, he saw a CCTV camera.
The residence security camera overlooks the street's entrance. It's a cul-de-sac, so the car stolen from Liz's house further up would have to go past this camera.
We didn't know exactly what time it occurred, so the officer sees 12 hours worth of CCTV.
Back at the station, the detective trawls through the footage.
Several hours into that footage, he got a breakthrough.
The officer sees that Liz's car was driven off at 4:20 in the afternoon. But because of reflections on the car window, it's impossible to see who's stealing it.
So the officer realised just before the car is stolen, a taxi comes onto the street, goes off camera, and then comes back out again. So at that point, we heavily suspected that that taxi had dropped someone off who had then committed that offence.
The officer recognises the taxi company from its logo, so he pays them a visit. He finds out that the company record their customers' phone calls, so he listens to the call that booked the taxi.
Hello?
Hello, love.
Can I have a taxi, please? Sorry.
What name's it for, love?
The officer contacted me and said, you're never going to believe this, Sarge. It's him. It was the same name as the labourer.
The labourer had not only given his name and address in the call, he'd used the same phone number that he'd earlier provided to the detective.
So the labourer had arrived on that street in a taxi moments before the car had been stolen. So we knew at that point we had our man.
As Liz had suspected all along, it was one of the labourers who had stolen from her. They arrest the 27-year-old man at his address and take him in for questioning. This is an excerpt from the actual recording of the interview.
I've not been in a taxi. So you can ask my bird about this.
I don't need to ask you, I'm asking you.
Do you know what I mean? I've not rung no tax off my phone.
Well, you have, because that's proof. I've got
Do you know what I
evidence of
mean?
it.
I've not rung it. I've not rung it.
Okay.
I've not been in a taxi.
Right, so who's rung it then?
Well, obviously not me.
It's your phone.
Do you know what I mean? I've not done it.
In the interview, he basically was told a pack of lies.
The truth was out. When he was dropped off home by his boss after their day's work on Liz's garden, the man, knowing Liz would still be out, had come back in a taxi to steal the cash from her house and take her car. Liz is overjoyed to hear he's been charged with burglary and theft.
And I was like, oh my God, wow. And because he'd had previous, he was straight in prison and wasn't allowed out on bail or anything. So, yeah, fantastic. Win.
This is a really sad case that someone's taken advantage of not only the victim, he's also breached that trust that he's been given by, an employer that's giving him a chance.
The man obviously thought he'd committed the perfect crime as he turned up for work at Liz's the following day like nothing had happened. But thanks to the tenacity of Rob's team and the security camera up the road, his crime turned out to be not so perfect after all. He eventually changes his plea to guilty before he appears in court. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison for burglary and theft. And a big bonus is that following a tip-off, Rob's team were also able to recover Liz's stolen car from where it had been left by the thief.
To get a car back or to get anything back for a victim is always really satisfying. It's a real plus for the team and it's something that we really enjoy doing.
It was like having a brand new car again. It was great. I absolutely loved it. And I just felt a massive weight lifted.
The landscape gardener completed the paving in the back garden and Liz is back up and running with the pack as usual.
I feel like myself again, weirdly enough, and everyone's just chuffed for me, it's really sweet, it's heartwarming, yeah, it's lovely. Good girl.
That's it for today. Until next time, when we see a few more criminals get caught red-handed. It's best we all keep a watchful eye out for crime. Because thieves will steal our cash, our cars, our valuables, just about anything they can get their hands on. Fortunately, there are many other eyes on the lookout too. The police, local councils and businesses are using their own tricks and traps, together with cutting-edge technology to catch the bad guys.
The key was CCTV.
A detective's dream, really.
And the public are using secret cameras to make sure the crooks get their comeuppance.
What are you doing in my house?
Put that down, that belongs to me.
I'm not gonna run away. I'm not gonna run away from this.
Everybody wanted to see that they got caught.
Fantastic. Win.
So anyone who's up to no good had better think twice. They might just get caught red-handed. Today on Caught Red-Handed, retired lecturer and magistrate Deirdre arrives home in her car and is shocked to discover 3 men actually raiding her house.
I wound my window down and said, "What are you doing? This is my house."
But they just carry on and she sees them taking her safe containing precious sentimental jewellery, including gifts from her late husband.
Please, what's your emergency?
I've just come home and found 3 burglars in my house.
They were taking almost everything of emotional value that I had.
Also today, in a family-run newsagent in Glasgow, Chris is working behind the counter when a man suddenly pulls out a hammer and threatens him, demanding money from the till.
She a tenner.
But Chris's aunt Roseanne is also in the shop and she isn't going to let anybody threaten her family.
It was just adrenaline kicked in and I brought him down.
A desperate struggle starts as aunt and nephew attempt to subdue the larger man, who's now screaming that he has a knife. Daylight robbery. It's a common phrase, but some burglars do actually choose to carry out their crimes in broad daylight, believing the public won't twig what's going on right under their noses. Retired lecturer and magistrate Deirdre has lived in London all her life and experienced the city's transformations firsthand.
I came from a big family. I was the eldest of 4 girls. But my dad and mum were very poor, and in those days London was much quieter. But then you had that great explosion of street fashion. It was very, very vibrant. It was. That's how it felt.
Deirdre started out as a window dresser for department stores. She rose quickly in the fashion industry and became a lecturer at London's University of the Arts.
The students, they're buzzing with ideas. So you have to remain on the ball yourself, and that's the most interesting thing about teaching.
Deirdre has also been a lifelong collector of jewellery.
Any disposable income I had, I would save up and I would buy a piece of jewellery. I think it's the sheer beauty of gems and the craftsmanship that goes into making them. It's very, very special. Rick said it was my bling thing.
Deirdre married successful business owner and long-term friend Rick in 1994. But sadly, after just 6 years of happiness, Rick passed away in 2000.
It was losing not just a husband, but a best friend. That was the sad bit.
Deirdre has always kept herself busy. After retiring from teaching, she worked as a court magistrate.
I did do family court for the next 11 years that I was sitting, as well as criminal. And that is heartbreaking.
But for Deirdre, unfortunately, when she retired from being a magistrate, her experiences of crime and heartbreak were to come nearer home. It's Saturday afternoon in West London. 2 security cameras on a private property are overlooking the road outside Deirdre's house, which is behind this wall. Deirdre has gone out in her car with her beloved elderly Labradoodle, Luca.
I'd take Luca to Wimbledon to walk. He was an easy-going chap, so a couple of hours walking.
Back at her house, a bike appears to have been dropped by the wall. A white car drives up the road and pulls over. Reversing, it stops right outside Deirdre's property. At the same time, the camera also shows there's an intruder in her garden. It must be his bike left outside, and he's climbed over the wall. The driver gets out of the car, and then he throws something to the man in the garden. He returns to the car. A while later, the garden intruder opens Deirdre's garage door. As the garage is linked to the house, he must have broken in to get inside there. There are now pedestrians in the street, but the man ignores them and opens the boot of the white car while the other man's still in the driving seat. He starts loading bags full of Deirdre's property that he's stolen from her house. After a couple of trips, he closes the boot, gets in, and they drive off, leaving the garage door open. But that's not the end of the burglary, because an hour later they come back. This time, there's 3 of them. 2 get out and enter the house. After a couple of minutes, the driver joins them and brings out more bags full of Deirdre's property. Then the man in grey comes out with items, moving stuff around to make room in the boot. He glances up the street. Then they bring out a heavy load and put it down. It's a dog bed concealing Deirdre's safe that holds her entire lifetime's collection of jewellery. They see a vehicle is coming up the road, so they quickly cover the safe with the dog bed and a high-vis pair of trousers. What they don't realise is, it's Deirdre coming home in her car.
As I came up the road, it didn't look right. And then I realised the garage door was open. I mean, I wound my window down and said, "What are you doing? This is my house." And he says, "What do you think I'm doing?" And I started to get out of the car to say, "Put that down, that belongs to me."
But the man in grey stares menacingly at Deirdre.
The look on his face, I mean, he made absolute blatant eye contact with me, and I was really frightened. He was not going to let me stand in the way of what he wanted to do, and I would just be collateral.
Deirdre shuts the door as the man prowls around her car. She edges the car forward. The man gets out of the way as another vehicle wants to get past. Then Deirdre's shocked to see the man handling her safe.
Absolute horror and disbelief. It was the worst thing I'd feared ever, because they were taking almost everything of emotional value that I had.
She bravely moves her car further forward to try to block them in, but the burglars start reversing their way out.
And I started to put the car into reverse, but I wasn't quick enough. Seeing that car disappear with all my beautiful jewellery in it, that horrible, horrible feeling, I would never see it again. I was not wearing my wedding ring or my engagement ring or my eternity ring. They were in the safe.
Deirdre calls the police.
Police, what's your emergency?
I've just come home and found 3 burglars in my house.
Are they still there now?
No, they pushed off with my safe and all my jewellery. Oh, God.
Later, Police Constable John Garcia's investigation gets a kickstart when he sees the gang have committed their crime right in front of Deirdre's neighbour's 2 high-definition cameras.
That CCTV is an amazing, clear image. My biggest hope would be that someone has met them before.
These callous and overconfident burglars may be about to pay for their cockiness. A man walks into a store and pulls out a hammer. He's expecting the younger man behind the counter to hand over cash. He's certainly not expecting what happens next. In West Glasgow, 27-year-old Chris has a job at a theatre, but also works most days in his family's newsagents.
The shop's been in the family for over 40 years, and it changed hands to my dad about 5 years ago. We all take our turn and do a wee bit, and sometimes it's great fun, sometimes it's challenging, but it keeps us all on our toes.
Chris's aunt, Roseanne, also works part-time there.
We have a good family relationship. We all got on really well. We can fall out with each other 2 minutes later, but we'll make you a cup of tea next 2 minutes. It's just the way we were all brought up. Yeah, very family orientated.
They've never had any trouble at the shop, and in this close-knit community, many of the customers have become friends.
Even the staff that we have in the shop, it's always been like customers, and it's their daughters that's worked in it, so it has been a nice place to work.
So I know all the customers, and they've known me since I was a baby, so it is just like a second home.
But one day, this friendly atmosphere is to change suddenly, in a terrifying moment when an armed robber targets the family shop. It's nearly 8 in the morning, just 2 days after Christmas. The CCTV cameras show that it's still dark outside. Chris and Roseanne have been up since 5 a.m. working in the shop.
It was really quiet. Roseanne was out front sorting magazines and I was behind the counter serving.
People have been coming in for their newspapers. One of them, an elderly customer, goes to speak to Roseanne.
She had a Christmas present for my grandson.
What would have been quite a nice relaxing morning just kind of changed.
An exterior camera shows a man walking across the road. He looks like he's holding something under his high-vis jacket. Chris looks up as the man enters the shop and suddenly pulls a balaclava down over his face.
I thought it was going to be a joke because our customers are very good at coming and winding us up.
But this is no joke when the man pulls a hammer out from his waistband and threatens Chris, demanding the money from the till.
It's sheer terror, like in panic, don't know what to do. And there is a panic alarm right in front of us, but you don't think to press the button.
But frightened as he is, Chris doesn't want to give the man the family's hard-earned money.
You're getting up out your bed at 5 o'clock in the morning to earn money, and for someone to come in and just expect you to hand it over, it's not going to happen.
He grabs a pile of newspapers and throws them at the man.
It was just the first thing that was in front of me, and it was a distraction to give me a minute or two.
The flying papers catches Aunt Roseanne's attention.
It was, what is happening?
When she realises it's a robber armed with a hammer, she bravely shoulder barges the man, sending him flying.
It was just adrenaline kicked in and I brought him down. We managed to hit him.
His next action was to then try and hit Roseanne with the hammer.
Roseanne tries to shield herself from the blow.
My instincts was, I have a grandchild and I might not see him again. That's why I thought to put my head away.
Chris realises Roseanne's in grave danger.
And Christopher flew over the counter and landed on top of him.
Chris is so quick, the man doesn't have a chance to swing the hammer.
It was all done through fear. It was just total fear.
I was on top of Christopher and we were trying to keep him down.
The main thing's trying to get the weapon off the man.
The elderly customer bravely steps in and grabs the hammer from the man. Chris wrestles him with all his might.
It was very much a struggle. Me and Roseanne are very, very small, and this gent was quite stocky and large.
The two of us were going up and down. I thought we were going to lose it here.
And then the man shouts at them that he has a knife.
We were threatened that he was going to stab us. So the first thing that we could think of was trying to hold the man's arms to avoid him getting access to the knife.
Christopher is pinning his hands down, and at the same time I'm trying to hold Christopher down on him. The both of us were scared.
The elderly customer manages to get past them and runs for help. The would-be robber nearly gets to his feet, but Chris and Roseanne cling on desperately, forcing him back down. Roseanne's angry and pulls hard on the man's balaclava.
I wanted to see if I did recognise him as a customer.
We didn't recognise him as a regular customer, but he had been in the shop before, which was just a shock that anyone that locally would have attempted to do that.
Roseanne tries to call the police.
I was fortunate enough I had my phone in my overall pocket.
And she managed to call the police while sitting on top of me.
I remember shouting, please hurry up, because he was going to stab us.
And it was the longest minutes of my life.
They managed to keep the man down until some men from the garage next door arrived to help.
It was a total sigh of relief when they walked through the door, just to have more bodies.
Chris is exhausted.
The rest of it, to be honest, seems a bit of a blur.
They hold the man for another 5 minutes, then police officers arrive.
It was just such a relief because it felt as if it was going on and on and on.
It was just good to know that was kind of the end of it.
The officers take over and Chris is finally able to get to his feet. They take the robber outside and search him.
We found out once he was searched, he did have a knife on him.
So that was a shock, and that's why he was scrambling for his jacket.
It was quite frightening to think there could have been another outcome of it.
They watch the attempted robbery back on their CCTV recording.
It did feel a bit surreal. Like, it didn't look as if it was me doing it, because it's something that I would never do. Like, personality-wise, it's just not me. But my thoughts was mainly just to protect Roseanne, and Roseanne was just wanting to protect me.
Earlier CCTV shows the man had been outside for some time before he entered the shop.
And just waiting for a good opportunity. So that was quite eerie, to learn that someone had actually been sitting outside watching you do your work.
The officers show their appreciation for Chris and Roseanne's citizen's arrest.
The police thanked us because if you hadn't got anything from the shop and got away with it, you could have done something else, which was nice to know that we managed to come through the other end.
But over the following days and weeks, Roseanne and Chris find that the attempted robbery has taken its toll on them.
You do get quite paranoid, especially opening at that time in the morning.
I just can't believe that somebody has changed how I feel and how I look at other people now, whereas I would never give anybody a second thought.
Roseanne attends the man's court case, where her victim's statement is read out on how his actions have affected her and Chris.
I just felt as if I really needed to be at that court case because I felt as if he needs to know how I feel.
I find it quite selfish. Someone thinking that they can just come in and take what they want. There is help out there for people that do need it, so it's not the answer. So I don't see that as an excuse, to be honest.
The judge agreed. The man was sentenced to 30 months in prison. The family were relieved.
After the court case, now that I know that he's been punished and I'm happy that he's been punished, we can move on.
It helped Roseanne and Chris to receive the strong support of their neighbours and customers during the attempted robbery and afterwards.
They were so pleased that everybody, we all came through it, and nobody else was affected by it, but the customers were really proud.
It was just quite nice to know that everyone kind of came together and was there for each other.
Mobile phone stores are full of small, valuable items that thieves can potentially run off with. So this one has a front door mechanism that allows it to be locked from behind the counter. This young man doesn't know that, but he's about to find out. He's apparently sizing up different phone options, but the way he's acting has made the owners suspicious. So by the time he asks if they can get a couple out for him to look at, they've already remotely locked the door as a precaution. A wise move, as it turns out. He's tried dashing off with £1,500 worth of phones, but his hopes have been dashed by the digital door. Now he has to sheepishly hand them back to the owner, who asks him,
"How are you doing, man?" Well, mate, it's not started forced to do it. So what? Someone's coming in and doing this way and me inside, come on.
"Ah, the old 'my mate told me to do it' excuse." Though his mate doesn't sound much of a mate, to be honest.
Come on. We should call the police right now.
Because nothing's been taken, the owners decide to let the would-be thief go. But he does suffer later, when the embarrassing footage of his hapless crime attempt is put online to deter other thieves. With the laughter of the internet ringing in his ears, there's a lesson to be learned to choose his phone and his friends more carefully in the future. Back in West London, Deirdre is bereft after 3 burglars have driven off with her safe containing her collection of jewellery, including her wedding and engagement rings given to her by her late husband.
So they took them. And seeing as Rick died, they were even more important. I mean, I castigated myself. Why wasn't I wearing them? I should have been wearing them, and then they'd have been safe.
Deirdre's on the phone to the police as she checks what the burglars have done to her home.
They destroyed the place, trashed the whole place, and they've taken my safe. Oh, God.
They'd taken the cash that I'd got out of the cash machine and all the shopping I'd done that day. And I went downstairs and there was devastation. They'd gone through the bedroom.
Police officers arrived to Deirdre's relief. Based at Hammersmith Police Station, PC John Garcia is in charge of the investigation.
When I spoke to Deirdre and spoke about all her personal belongings, I can only begin to imagine what horrible feeling that must have been for her.
Officers at the scene discover that the burglars had broken into Deirdre's house via a garden door at the back. And by the garage, they find a pair of high-vis trousers that the burglars left behind after Deirdre's arrival made them rush their getaway.
Those trousers may have some DNA, so those were then sent for forensic analysis.
But the most valuable evidence they find is this recording from the neighbours' security cameras.
I don't think that camera could have been better positioned to show all of that take place. The fact that Deirdre has come across her house being broken into, and that in its own, for me, it's shocking. I think it was extremely brave what she's done in terms of, challenging those suspects. And I'm glad that at the end of it, she was safe. That's the most important thing.
The burglars clearly believed they were hiding in plain sight. They didn't fully cover their faces and parked their white car in full view. Presumably, they thought that would avoid raising suspicion with passers-by who would just assume they are clearing out a garage. But they hadn't done enough homework about the cameras in the street.
It is, an amazing sort of way to start any investigation, making inquiries around the vehicle.
Police officer John looks up the car's number plate and finds that it's registered to a vehicle hire company. He pays them a visit.
They provided very crucial pieces of evidence to me. A driving licence, which had been produced.
The driving licence has a clear image of the face of the man who hired the car, as well as a name and address.
That driving licence matches the driver of that vehicle that is shown on the CCTV. It was great for my investigation. He becomes then, at that point, our main suspect.
John also circulates images of all three burglars around the London Metropolitan Police to see if anyone recognises them. Meanwhile, Deirdre is struggling at home after the burglary.
People talk about the violation, but it's more than that. I mean, it made the house alien. I didn't want to be in the house, but didn't want to leave it, frightened to leave it. So it really sort of threw me. And I'm not a wimp. I don't easily get discombobulated, but I was by that. It was horrible, really horrible.
Back at the Met, after sharing the burglars' images, John's investigation takes another leap forward when it turns out that an officer has dealt with the two main offenders before.
One of which was the driver of the vehicle for which we already had driving licence. The other one, my officer has recognised the individual that you can see on the CCTV footage opening the garage.
It's the man in grey who had frightened Deirdre. John looks him up on the police database.
I compared it against other images that we had of that individual when he's had contact with police in the past. And I was fairly happy that this was the same individual. So we had our second suspect.
John then finds out that this second suspect is now being held in prison on remand for another matter.
It was a relief knowing that potentially we were stopping that individual from causing any further harm to somebody else. And so my attention then was drawn to the first suspect.
He then gets the results back from the high-vis trousers that have been sent to the forensic lab. And it's good news. There are traces of the driver's DNA on them.
It's just one more piece of the puzzle that just helps. We had the driving licence, we had the forensics come from the trousers, as well as the identification made from the CCTV of the offence.
The man is tracked down and arrested, and both suspects are interviewed with mixed results. The man in grey sees sense and confesses straight away.
He's made a full admission, has been involved in that burglary. It was good to know that certainly I could give that good piece of news to Deirdre.
The driver refuses to admit his guilt despite the evidence against him and insists on going to trial by jury.
Obviously that's frustrating. I was hoping that this case would have been dealt with and so that Deirdre could move on with her life.
I mean, by that time I was very angry. So I was more than happy to play my part in getting a conviction.
Sadly, Deirdre's jewellery has never been recovered, but at least she has the knowledge that the two main offenders who stole it were put behind bars. In court, the 34-year-old man who pleaded guilty was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison. The 33-year-old driver was found guilty by jury and sentenced to 4 years. The third man at the raid remains unidentified.
If any information was to come forward, of course, identifying this third individual, then obviously this will be looked at and investigated.
Deirdre was delighted with the outcome of the police investigation.
Very pleased. I think that's really what justice is. And I think John Garcia did get a good result, and I'm pleased for him and his team.
Deirdre sold the house that was burgled and has moved to an apartment block that is much more secure. She has since replaced the rings that have been given to her by her late husband.
I've been much more circumspect. I mean, since this has happened, I haven't started the collection again, but I do still buy lots of clothes.
But after her dog Luca passed away from old age, Deirdre did collect this little gem to look after.
I can't really live without dogs. So I looked around and I settled on a show cocker spaniel and a little girl. What a dream! And I'll bring her up until she's about a year old, and then I'll get a companion for her. You are, you little beastie. So that's the plan. We'll see how it goes.
That's it for today. Until next time, when we see a few more criminals get caught red-handed. It's best we all keep a watchful eye out for crime. Because thieves will steal our cash, our cars, our valuables, just about anything they can get their hands on. Fortunately, there are many other eyes on the lookout too. The police, local councils and businesses are using their own tricks and traps, together with cutting-edge technology, to catch the bad guys.
The key was CCTV.
A detective's dream, really.
And the public are using secret cameras to make sure the crooks get their comeuppance.
What are you doing in my house?
Put that down, that belongs to me.
I'm not gonna run away. I'm not gonna run away from this.
Everybody wanted to see that they got caught.
Fantastic. Win.
So anyone who's up to no good had better think twice. They might just get caught red-handed. Today on Caught Red-Handed, Debbie treasures her family's camper van, which allows them to holiday safely in the UK with their son, who lives with epilepsy. But one night, the van's stolen off their drive.
I was just gutted. I was really gutted.
Then, Debbie's horrified when she realises the thieves must have been inside their home to steal the van keys.
Because we were up and about, you realise what could have happened. It was a real deep-seated violation.
But Debbie's not the only victim. Police catch sight of a mystery man trying doors who doesn't care if people are in when he finds one open. Also today, garage owner Javid loves to keep parrots, especially his precious Amazon parrot Rocky.
I love him. I spend all my extra time with him.
But then, Javid is left shattered when there's a break-in at his garage. Valuable equipment is stolen, but worst of all, Rocky is missing too.
The cage was open and the feathers were everywhere. Where is my Rocky? I pray for him.
Most of us remember to lock our doors when we go out or to bed for the night, but maybe not so when we're up and about in the house. Unfortunately, some thieves go out looking for an open invitation. In the seaside town of Penarth, South Wales, Debbie lives with her partner Chris and their 13-year-old son Harrison.
Harrison loves his sports, incredibly adventurous. He's funny, he's a lovely boy. Then we've also got Cody, our cockapoo, and a big part of the family and a big part of the bed.
Debbie's a nurse and used to medical emergencies at work, but she wasn't prepared for something at home that would alter her family's life dramatically.
Out of the blue, Harrison developed epilepsy when he was 8 years old, and he was hospitalised about 3 or 4 times in quite a short period of time, and he was incredibly poorly.
But with successful treatment, Harrison got through it.
He's still on medication, but fortunately he's stable, but it's changed everything in our life.
Including where they holiday. Not wanting to risk going abroad, Debbie decided to make the most of the UK and splashed out on her long-held ambition of owning a camper van.
It just gave us that freedom. Last year we took Harrison and a few of his friends to West Wales for a teenage boy few days holiday, and that was amazing. It was just lovely to see him so happy.
Debbie also used the camper van for driving to work.
The camper van was really the cornerstone of our life, and it was really important to us as a family.
But Debbie and her family were about to suffer at the hands of cold and calculating criminals who also see their beloved van as valuable, but in a very different way. It's evening at the family home and they've spent the day catching up with some friends.
I said goodbye to them at 10:30. Chris is in the kitchen washing up. I was upstairs with Harrison.
Then something goes bump in the night.
I heard a noise, but it was an incredibly windy night, and it was very easy to put it down to something just falling over.
Their sleeping dog, Cody, also doesn't stir.
Cody had been playing with my friend's dog all day, so he was exhausted. So Chris locked up, and we went to bed as normal.
In the morning, Debbie looks out of the window and is stunned to see their camper van has gone from their drive.
There was just disbelief, anger, and I was just gutted. I was really gutted.
After reporting the theft to the police, it starts to dawn on Debbie what else was in the van. There was a supply of Harrison's medicine in case of emergencies and her work bag full of expensive nursing equipment.
There was probably up to £2,000 worth of things inside the van as well.
At first, Debbie assumes the thieves had hotwired the van, but she discovers her set of keys are missing. She then remembers that the night before she'd left them in the front door lock on the inside, ready to lock up later, and she reaches a chilling conclusion.
Someone had come into the property, taken the keys. The noise that we heard was the door shutting. And then Chris proceeded to lock up as he would normally with his own set of keys. I think the violation from the van being stolen changed to a real deep-seated violation when I realised somebody had been in the house.
It's a horrifying thought.
You realise what could have happened had Chris seen the perpetrator, or whether Harrison had come down the stairs and seen him, that things could have been worse.
Debbie can't believe that all this happened at the relatively early hour of 10:30 p.m.
Which I thought was incredibly brazen, given that we were all up. We live in a cul-de-sac. The van would have had to have been spun round. I was angry at myself because I didn't hear anything.
Debbie doesn't have CCTV, so she talks to other local residents to see if anybody saw anything or if they have CCTV. A camera on another house had captured a suspicious silver vehicle driving slowly past another van on the estate. Then, a little later, another neighbour's camera is filming as the same silver car drives off, with the family's stolen camper van right behind it.
Seeing the camper van being driven away was really creepy. You realise then actually that these people are real and they've been into your property.
The camper van doesn't have a tracker.
I'm probably never going to get it back. Chris and Harrison as well were really upset that somebody had actually been into the property, but realising also that that was our holidays and not knowing what was going to happen for the future. I kind of felt defeated.
Later, it turns out that Debbie's family are not the only victims of these ruthless, highly active thieves who think nothing of burgling houses while owners are in. Detective Mike Healy heads up a special operation to stop them.
The pressure's on. We were seeing burglars every day. Personally, I felt like we were failing.
But then it looks like they may have a vital breakthrough.
It was like a eureka moment.
A burglar is raiding a garage's workshop in the night, and it's his second visit. Earlier on in the day, he'd taken away something belonging to the garage owner, something priceless. And tonight, the burglar's back for more. Javid runs a garage in Blackburn. But growing up in Pakistan, it wasn't just cars he got into. He had a pet parrot as a boy and has owned many over the years. So they are not home alone all day. He keeps them in a specially converted room upstairs at his garage.
I love them. Very calm, beautiful, the colours when you see them.
Good morning. Did you say that?
They are next to my office, so I can go anytime and talk to the birds. Sometimes I come with my kids. I spend all my extra time with them.
His favourite is his Amazon parrot called Rocky, which he's had for 3 years.
This is one of the biggest parrot I have. When we are eating, he wants to eat with us. If I'm eating my apple and I give him another apple, no, he wants the same apple which I am eating. I love him most in all of the parrots.
The parrot's room is kept locked when Javid's not there, but he was about to find out in a very distressing way that what's most precious to him is also of value to a criminal. It's a Saturday, and Javid and his colleagues have been working in the garage. In the afternoon, before they shut shop, he looks in on Rocky and the other parrots.
I fed them, I give them food.
Later, at the end of the day, they lock the parrot's room, lock the garage and head home. The next morning, Javid's shocked to get a call from the car wash next door. Someone has broken into his garage by knocking a hole through the adjoining wall. After informing the police, he goes to the garage and finds his workshop's been ransacked.
Somebody taken some tools, my diagnostic scanners. My checkbook was stolen.
The door to the parrot's room is still locked, but when Javid goes inside and sees Rocky's cage, he has a nasty surprise.
The cage was open and everywhere, the feathers were everywhere.
Rocky's missing.
So where is he? So I start running. Where is my Rocky? And everybody starts searching. I was running maybe I can see some feathers or anything on the road. I pray for him.
Finding no trace of Rocky, Javid then checks his CCTV to find out what's gone on. He sees the exterior camera recorded a man walking past the main garage door at midnight. Hours later, he's picked up on a camera inside the workshop.
And he took about 3 hours to break the wall, and then he came inside.
In Javid's workshop, the man helps himself to a laptop and tools. But then, climbing onto a desk, he gives the camera a clear close-up of his face. Javid knows what the culprit looks like at least, but this footage still doesn't explain how Rocky went missing, as there's nothing showing the man going anywhere near the parrot's room. And it was still locked when Javid found it. Trying to solve the mystery, Javid checks the garage's exterior camera again, winding back from the nighttime break-in to earlier in the day.
Then I find out yesterday, 4 o'clock, somebody came in.
It's the same man who later broke into the workshop. But at this time, he's able to walk into the garage while Javid and his colleagues are still working. And with all the noise, they don't hear him slip upstairs where the parrot's room is. He got in during the time between Javid feeding the birds and when their door was locked. On the footage, Javid sees the intruder leave with Rocky inside a bag. He knows this because he hears his beloved birds squawk in fear on the soundtrack. It's very upsetting for Javid.
Rocky was crying. He made very loud noise. I never hear that whenever I have this parrot. This is the worst thing. He don't know how delicate these birds are.
The rest of the parrots are securely locked away by the time the man returns to break in later. Javid gives the police copies of the CCTV. He fears for Rocky's welfare.
All of us, me, my family, my daughters, everybody, at the same time we were all praying we get our parrot back.
Javid contacts other parrot owners and dealers in the area in case they hear anything.
I know if somebody steals my parrot, he wants to sell it.
He also posts the image of the thief on social media.
I put it, do anybody know who this guy is?
He's soon given a name. Javid's also relieved to hear his parrot is alive, and true to his name, it sounds like Rocky has been putting up a fight.
Somebody told me the guy who took the parrot, we know him, and the parrot bite him on his finger. And we saw his finger, he put some bandage on the finger. So this means your bird is still alive.
A couple of days after Rocky disappears, a man then approaches Javid saying he's bought Rocky and offers to sell him back.
He said to me, I don't want to tell you where I bought it. I don't want to tell you how I got it. I said, I don't want to know. I want my bird back right now.
Javid gives the man £250 and half an hour later he comes back with Rocky.
I know that's my bird. If the Rocky is in between 1,000, same Amazon parrot, I can tell you this is my Rocky.
But Rocky has obviously been through a terrible ordeal.
There was no feather on the skin. He was shaking. These birds, they talk to their eyes. You can feel if they are happy, if they are sad. And he was like, he had a hard time. And he was like, I can feel he's crying. And I was crying as well at the same time.
Javid's got Rocky back, though the man that took him is still free. But he's about to get his wings clipped. 6 days after the break-in at the garage, somebody tries to cash a cheque for £500 from Javid's stolen chequebook. The alarm is raised and police arrest the man.
I was happy, I was really happy. At least, he is being caught on what he has done wrong.
At Blackburn Magistrates Court, the man pleaded guilty to theft of a parrot and other items totalling over £3,000. He was sentenced to 22 weeks, suspended for 12 months and ordered to pay £500 compensation. Javid and the whole family are delighted to have been reunited with Rocky, who is on the mend after his experience.
Feathers are coming back and he's getting better and better every day. He starts talking, playing, and I'm thinking he's forgot what happened and he's back to normal.
Sadly, like Javid, many owners will face heartbreak if their animals are stolen. As the price of pets, particularly dogs, has gone up in recent years, so has their value increased to thieves. So how can we keep our pets safe?
Rear gardens need to be really secure if we're going to keep pets in them. So think about garden gates, make sure that they're securely fastened and bolted from the inside, make sure that that bolt is low down so it's difficult for an offender to reach over the top. Consider some anti-climb paint for fences and walls to deter offenders.
We should always try to keep a close eye on our pets when out walking, and specifically for dogs, train them to respond to their name so that when we call them, they come back quickly when approached by a stranger or even when they could be in danger. If it's not possible to do this, then please keep them on the leash.
Microchipping our pets won't prevent them from being stolen, but they will help us be reunited with our pets once they are found. It is, however, really important that we keep the information related to the microchip up to date, including our contact details, so that if our pets are found, then they can be reunited with us quickly.
Further proof here, if it were needed, that anything can be a target for a thief, when this bare-chested man captured on a doorbell camera has the bare-faced cheek to stroll into someone's front garden and steal their monkey puzzle tree. With its prickles, quite a risky job with no top on. And the homeowner felt very prickly when she saw this footage of its theft. She posts the image on the internet to try to get her beloved tree back. It works. Many people identify the man and he is shamed into coming back the next day to issue a heartfelt, if slightly foul-mouthed apology.
How are we doing, okay? I'm the one responsible for taking the plants. I'm not gonna lie, right? Okay, brutally honest, I was steaming, right? My mate tagged me on, I took it, it's safe, don't worry. It's perfectly safe in the box. I woke up with it in my living room, right? I was looking at it this morning, my missus is going mental on me. Okay. Alright, I'll bring it back. I've got a couple of jobs to do today now and I'll bring it up to you, right?
Right, okay.
I'm so sorry, right?
The man later returns in his van and dumps the tree back on the drive. He didn't knock at the door this time. Maybe he's now feeling a little camera shy. And the homeowner now keeps her treasured monkey puzzle out of the front garden, so she never has to puzzle out where it's gone in the future. In Penarth, near Cardiff, Debbie's family have had their precious camper van stolen, which allowed them to holiday safely with their 13-year-old son Harrison, who lives with epilepsy. It is particularly shocking because the thieves entered the house to steal the keys while the family were inside.
Harrison now, he's become quite obsessive about the doors being locked, and it's really hard to see that he's gone from carefree to actually now really worrying about being safe in his own home.
The offence at Debbie's was the latest in the Cardiff area of what police call two-in-one burglaries, where the thieves break into a house to steal car keys. There's been a sudden, alarming rise in this type of crime, and Detective Sergeant Mike Healy of South Wales Police is in charge of a special task force set up to tackle it.
Over 2 weeks, we were noticing a burglary involving a car being stolen with its keys was happening on a daily basis, and we had to respond to that.
Mike and the team believe the crimes are the work of the same offenders, as they all follow a similar pattern.
There was no forced entry. It was people leaving their doors unlocked. These doors were being opened, car keys were being taken, people's lives were being devastated by the fact their houses were being broken into and the pain of knowing that they weren't safe. And the process of getting a new vehicle isn't going to be a quick one, and you can see the hurt.
Mike's team start by viewing footage from traffic cameras to try to trace the movements of the stolen cars. They can only track them on main roads before they disappear into a large industrial area of Cardiff. But it's not just the stolen vehicles themselves that police are looking out for.
We also did something called convoy analysis, where we looked at any vehicle that might have been following or being followed by the stolen vehicles, and we noticed a specific silver hatchback.
It means there must be at least 2 criminals involved. One driving the silver car, one driving the stolen car. To try to identify them, Mike's team collects CCTV images from the crime areas. They reveal a man apparently doing the rounds trying front door handles, but his face is always covered.
The fact that we couldn't identify him was a frustrating time for us. You know, personally, I felt like we were failing.
And worryingly, it doesn't put this burglar off if there are people inside a house. Here, in somebody's garden, he enters the back door and is interrupted by the owner. He runs, but still finds time to give a cocky response.
The concern really was if we didn't catch this guy early, he was going to hurt a member of the public who was just trying to defend their home.
But then Mike's team finally get the break they're looking for. This camera captures the man trying another door handle, but he slipped up.
It was like a eureka moment. The suspect decided not to cover his face with a mask, but instead used his hands, and that revealed more than enough that an officer was able to identify the suspect.
He is a 35-year-old local man who's been convicted of similar crimes before. Mike's team later find even clearer footage when they trace him to a hotel reception ordering a taxi home.
He's taken his hat off and stared straight at the camera. It was beyond reasonable doubt now.
Mike sends officers to arrest the suspect, but he is elusive.
Unfortunately, we just couldn't find him. He sofa surfs and stays in various addresses.
Now he knows the man's name and previous addresses, Mike tries another line of inquiry. He approaches mobile phone providers to see if the suspect has a phone registered with any of them. While he waits, the crimes continue and now include the burglary at Debbie's and the theft of their family camper van. This time, there's no doubt the silver hatchback is working in convoy with the car thief.
It bothered us when we'd find out another burglary had happened overnight and we still hadn't caught our suspects.
But soon after Debbie's burglary, the silver hatchback comes to a sticky end and provides vital new evidence for Mike.
That silver vehicle is in an accident and we recover it. Inside was Debbie's stolen property from her camper van, so it really was the confirmation that we had the right vehicle.
Then there's another big break for Mike when one of the phone signal providers comes back to him with a mobile number the main suspect's been using.
They obviously asked us if we wanted the data in relation to that, and yeah, that was a big deal, and of course we wanted it.
Mike analyses the suspect's mobile phone data, and it proves that the man was present in the same areas as crimes were being committed.
What that also showed was when vehicles were being stolen and they were travelling a certain direction, everywhere that vehicle went, the mobile phone was with it, which was incredible evidence.
The man's phone also points Mike in the direction of the second suspect.
When these offences were taking place, our main offender was contacting one number and one number only.
Mike calls another mobile phone company to find out who this number belongs to.
Which led us to our second suspect, who was well known in Cardiff for being involved in burglaries and the theft of motor vehicles, but also the handling of them.
Mike now knows his two suspects, and the search for the first one finally has a result when officers receive a tip-off saying where he's hiding.
Just wait, come down, that's all.
Following a chase across rooftops, an officer wearing a body camera coaxes down the cornered suspect.
It took a significant amount of time to convince him to actually come down from the roof. It's a great feeling when you know that we've got him now and there's nowhere really for him to go.
You're under arrest for burglary, right? You don't have to say anything, but may I be defence? You're going to mention what question, so you're going to be caught. Anything you do say may be given evidence.
If more evidence were needed, that top looks familiar. The second suspect is later arrested at his home address. The man's phone data is as incriminating as the first offender's, but he denies it's his phone. However, the man hasn't counted on a bit of CCTV that Mike's team retrieves from a building he frequents.
And lo and behold, there was our guy not just using the phone once, but several times. It's bright red, it's undeniably the phone in question, so it was a fantastic result.
After the second suspect's been caught red phone-handed, Mike's team finds the final nail in the coffin for both suspects when footage shows them together on the night of Debbie's burglary in the silver hatchback before it crashed, apparently exchanging a payment. It's damning evidence.
Our main offender was stealing the vehicles on our second offender's behalf. The second offender was taking control of those vehicles and selling them on, breaking them down and doing whatever he has done with them.
Unfortunately, most of the stolen vehicles aren't recovered. From the thieves' crashed car, police were able to return some of Nurse Debbie's possessions, including her medical equipment, as it was still in its small case untouched. Losing the camper van is a blow for her, but at least she knows that the people responsible have been caught.
It gave a sense of security, knowing that he wasn't coming back here, because that was my fear. And it gave a sense of closure, but tinged with the sadness as well.
At Cardiff Crown Court, faced with the overwhelming evidence that Mike's built against them, the two offenders pleaded guilty to the charges. One of the men was sentenced to 6 years in prison, while the other was jailed for 5 years. Mike and his team are happy that they've put a stop to two prolific criminals.
My hope is that our victims are going to have some form of closure, to know that some justice has been served and some peace of mind that these guys are going to be going nowhere for a significant period of time.
Debbie and the family have increased the security at their house and have now put the burglary behind them. They hope to replace the camper van one day, but being without it hasn't stopped them planning trips.
We're not going to let the actions of the perpetrators affect our adventures in the future. We've got many adventures planned. First one, hopefully, up to Scotland. So we're looking forward to our happy times and adventures as a family.
That's it for today. Until next time, when we see a few more criminals get caught red-handed. It's best we all keep a watchful eye out for crime. Because thieves will steal our cash, our cars, our valuables, just about anything they can get their hands on. Fortunately, there are many other eyes on the lookout too. The police, local councils and businesses are using their own tricks and traps, together with cutting-edge technology, to catch the bad guys.
The key was CCTV.
A detective's dream, really.
And the public are using secret cameras to make sure the crooks get their comeuppance.
What are you doing in my house?
Put that down, that belongs to me.
I'm not gonna run away. I'm not gonna run away from this.
Everybody wanted to see that they got caught.
Fantastic. Win.
So anyone who's up to no good had better think twice. They might just get caught red-handed. Today on Caught Red-Handed, the British Transport Police are fighting a war against a growing army of pickpockets.
Organised crime groups now are targeting people who are literally carrying their lives around on their phones in their pockets.
It's a high-stake game of cat and mouse as undercover officers hunt down these thieves.
These offences happen in a blink of an eye. You've got one shot at this to get them in the act.
And they come up against two female pickpockets who are so ruthless they target a 10-year-old boy.
You don't normally see pickpockets targeting children. They're horrendous.
Also today, Brendan and Hayley are shocked to find a stranger in their hallway who's come in through their door. They get him to leave.
I still felt really frightened, like, was he going to come back?
Seen on CCTV, her partner Brendan goes out in their car to follow the man and sees him trying other people's doors.
And then he stormed right up to me. He's pulled a knife out of his pocket and said, "You know, I'll kill you."
Brendan quickly runs away, but the man follows. There's a rise in highly organised pickpocket gangs who slyly steal valuables in a flash. But going up against them are police teams who are just as cunning and able to strike just as quickly. Inspector Sharon Turner of the British Transport Police, the BTP, heads teams trained to deal with thieves on the rail network.
Criminals are drawn to the tube stations and the train stations because these are really busy environments. There are 2 to 5 million passenger journeys a day on the network, and people are concentrating on where they're going, especially tourists who don't notice what's going on around them.
And it's pickpocketing that's the #1 reported crime.
Pickpocketing goes back hundreds of years. It's one of the first crimes. But pickpockets now are targeting people who are literally carrying their lives around on their phones in their pockets. And these phones are worth sometimes in excess of £1,000.
Sharon has suffered this crime herself.
I've been pickpocketed on 2 occasions. My phone had personal things in it, and you do feel lost without it. So, you know, I know what it's like to feel like a victim, and it's not a nice feeling.
Fighting prolific pickpockets is a constant battle for the BTP.
We do get opportunist theft, but we have a bigger problem of organised crime groups. So I have a proactive task force, which are plainclothes officers who have an expertise at this. They look like regular passengers. They are out there all year, 7 days a week, actively trying to locate, spot and arrest these offenders.
And recently, one of Sharon's secret squads spotted an organised criminal gang who were targeting vulnerable victims, including a 10-year-old boy. It's a warm afternoon in London. The summer holidays have started and public transport is busy. Undercover cop Steve and 2 of his colleagues are patrolling the tube network looking out for pickpockets. Due to the nature of his work, Steve's identity needs to remain hidden. He's up against sophisticated multinational gangs.
Organised crime groups come to the UK for 2 to 3 weeks at a time to go out and steal as much as they possibly can, and then they'll be on the run again somewhere else, doing it in another country. My job is to stop them in the quickest time period I can for them arriving in the UK.
Steve reads the crowds to seek out the bad apples.
There are lots and lots of people moving around, and in between all of that, one person will catch my eye. But it's just little tiny things that normal people won't do. So we pick up on that, and then it's our job to follow that person as out of the way as possible, like, you know, be a ghost, and wait for an offence to take place.
Today, as Steve is leaving Tottenham Court Road Underground Station, his sixth sense is triggered.
And as I got to the top of the escalators, there was two men, and they were just watching people, and I knew instantly. There was no second beat on it. I turned to my colleague and said, "We got to."
Steve and his colleague are careful not to give themselves away.
We kept walking just across the road, and I sat on a wall and looked across the road, and I could clearly see these two men were watching everyone coming in, everyone going out, and looking at bags, looking at rucksacks.
He suspects these two men are spotters who keep an eye out for potential victims and also police officers.
More and more now we're seeing teams of 3, 4 and 5, where one will be the pickpocket and the second one will be the blocker. They'll be using a large scarf, they'll be using a map to cover the actions, but also their other role is to be a lookout. So it's the ultimate game of cops and robbers. They're trying to catch us out, we're trying to catch them out.
And even after 18 years, it's still a game that Steve enjoys winning.
When I first started doing it, the excitement was incredible. You know, the heart flutters, you get sweaty palms, your mind's going at 100 miles an hour. And I always thought that would wear off, but it's still there. It's never left.
Then the two men walk over to the side of the road where Steve is sitting.
And they've walked within 10 feet of me, and an elderly lady's walked past with a rucksack on her back. And they've pointed at this lady with a rucksack. And then from out of the station exit come two females.
These women immediately start following the elderly woman the men have singled out. Steve starts following them himself, but he can't intervene until a crime is actually taking place. He needs the pickpockets to make a move.
An attempted theft in this country carries exactly the same sentence as theft, and a lot of the pickpockets don't know that. I've got one shot at this to get them in the act, because these offences happen in a blink of an eye. We need to be there to grab that hand when it's inside the bag or inside the pocket.
Steve and his colleague get ready to strike as the pickpockets get closer to the elderly woman.
One of the girls has pulled out a large map, which is a big telltale sign. She's gone towards the rucksack of the elderly female. The other one's gone under the map, towards the bag.
But the pickpockets and police are about to get a surprise.
The elderly female bent down on the ground, picked up a cup, and walked over and put it in a bin. And as she'd done that, they basically fell over the back of her. We were going to have it, and she just disappeared. And then the elderly female was with a group that I'd noticed standing around, and she started talking to them, so it put the two females off.
The elderly woman doesn't realise her impulsive decision to pick up some litter has kept her out of the pickpockets' clutches.
So they've come back to the station entrance. So I've contacted another member of my team, so he's turned up.
He now has an extra pair of eyes keeping watch on all the gang members, but the women are his main focus.
No matter where they go now, doesn't matter. I know that any minute now, these two are going to steal from somebody.
Later, a Canadian family are visiting London when captured on CCTV. Their 10-year-old son, Christopher, becomes a cruel choice of target for this unscrupulous gang of pickpockets.
It feels weird, so I turn my body to look at it, and my bag is open.
This is happening very suddenly, so we cannot digest what happened. It's shameful. This is just a little boy.
But the pickpockets aren't aware Steve's team are poised to pounce. A thief stalks around a neighbourhood, entering houses. But when a concerned resident tails him in their car to report his behaviour, the man confronts him and threatens him with a knife. In the town of Ellesmere Port on the Wirral Peninsula, supermarket recruitment consultant Brendan lives with his partner Hayley, who's an assistant shop manager. Brendan had 3 sons from a previous relationship when he moved in with Hayley and her son and daughter.
Our families just work well together.
Brendan is a great dad, and because he shows so much love to my 2 children, I knew he was the right person to have our own children.
They've had another boy together, 19-month-old George, and there's another on the way. Parenting is something they both enjoy.
I love being busy. It keeps me going.
Lots of activities, playing football, things that they've done in school in the day, just brilliant.
Hayley and Brendan feel happy and secure in Ellesmere Port and in their house too.
It is our home, it is where you go to get away from things, where you have special occasions.
It needs to be safe for the children, full of love, laughter. So yeah, all of those things mean a great deal to me.
But an intruder is about to disturb their life and make their family home feel far from safe. It's late afternoon. The children are in school and nursery. When Brendan gets home, he's greeted by their little pug, Shadow.
Went upstairs, was putting some washing away. Hayley came home from work.
I just popped my handbag into the kitchen and went upstairs.
We were just talking about work, what day was like.
Then Hayley thinks she hears the front door open. She assumes it's one of the children.
I shouted down, "Hello," and nobody answered.
And she said to me, "I'm sure I heard the door," and I said, "I didn't hear anything." I got quite poor hearing, to be honest.
But Shadow senses something.
The dog made a little bit of a commotion.
He doesn't really bark unless it's people that he doesn't know.
Brendan goes to take a look and is surprised to find a man he's never seen before in their hallway.
And he's like, I said, "What are you doing in my house?"
The man says he's come to sell Brendan some car brake discs.
And I was like, "No, you must have the wrong house." And he showed me a bag and his bag's full, and he's then said, "I've been texted this address." He's trying to make me out to be a liar, so I was a little bit suspicious.
The man doesn't budge.
And I said, "No, you must have the wrong house." To which he said, "Your number," and told me a number. And I said, "No, you've definitely got the wrong house, so off you go." So I ushered him out of the door. Why would he be in my hall? You'd knock on the door or you'd ring the doorbell.
Feeling uneasy, Brendan goes outside and sees the man riding away from another address on a bicycle.
So I knocked on the door to check his side of the story.
But the people who answer haven't ordered any brakes either.
And one of the occupants of the house said, "I heard somebody trying our front door. I wondered what it was." I said, "I just thought I'd let you know anyway."
Back at home, Hayley is calling the non-emergency police number 101 to report the man.
And then Brendan returned and said, "I can't see him." So at that point, I put the phone down.
And then as I've come into the house, Hayley said, he's back. He's rode past on his bike."
He's going into the next close. I'm going to have to ring the police back.
And she does that. Brendan decides to get in Hayley's car and follow the man.
It was a little bit frightening and was a little bit like, should I be doing this?
CCTV on a resident's house shows Brendan driving into the close where the man is now.
He was walking up and down in front of the houses, just trying door handles. So I wound the window down and said to him, "Mate, what are you doing?" He swore back at me. I've then got out of the car and then he stormed right up to me and he said, "What's got to do with you?" I said, "You've just been in my house." He said, "No, the door was open." I said, "So does that mean that you're allowed to walk into my house?" Pretty sure it doesn't.
Then the situation suddenly escalates.
He was then fumbling about in his pockets and I've kind of thought something's going to happen. So I've took a step back away from him, and as I've took a step back away from him, he's pulled a knife out of his pocket and said, "You know, I'll kill you."
Brendan runs from the man. He leaves the car behind, locking it remotely as he turns for home. But the man follows him.
He's on his bike and he's just riding behind me, just swearing at me and being aggressive.
Hayley's still on the phone to Police 101 when Brendan rushes into their house, locking the door.
His words were, "Put the phone down, phone 999, he's just pulled a knife on me."
The police call handler says they will send officers straight round. They arrive within minutes, but the man has already ridden off. Police search the area.
I still felt really frightened. Was he going to come back?
The chilling realisation of what could have happened sinks in.
I love Brendan. I couldn't actually imagine my life without Brendan. So to think, if that knife had made contact, yeah.
I would have been lying round the corner, and how long would it have took Hayley to come round the corner to see if I was there?
And what if the children were at home and they'd have seen that situation unfold?
After a fruitless search, the police come to take their statements.
Details about his appearance, what he was wearing, what he was riding. Obviously told me off for going round the corner chasing a burglar.
Hayley posts on a local community social media group to warn others in the area. And it soon becomes clear theirs was not the only encounter with the man.
He was in the area at 5:30 the same morning, and it was actually caught on somebody's camera that he was already scoping the area. He'd been in people's back gardens, he'd been in another property. He picked up a set of car keys in that property.
The CCTV shows him trying to work out which vehicle the keys unlock. But when he's confronted by the owner, he drops them and rides off. In the days following, with the man still on the loose, Hayley is worried about the family's safety in the house. The couple are all too aware that the intruder was armed when Brendan confronted him in their hallway.
So the door was locked all the time.
But then the police give them an update. Brendan's description has helped identify a suspect.
On the back of a comment that Brendan had made about an accent and facial features, they had an idea of who it was.
Brendan noticed the knife man had a Midland-sounding accent. Police have also collected all the CCTV footage of the suspect in the area.
They were obviously just building up their case to have enough evidence to go and pick up the offender.
A week after the incident, the police call again to let them know the man has been arrested.
Felt a bit proud that obviously he's been arrested and I've given him the information.
It was a relief, but knowing that actually it's not over yet because they mentioned, you know, we may have to go to court.
The police ask for Brendan's help once more to identify the man in an ID parade.
Otherwise he may walk if you don't pick him out in the lineup.
At the police station, once again Brendan sees the face of the man who pulled a knife on him.
I instantly knew that I had the right person. It was a relief, and it was kind of a bit, that's brilliant. He's going down for a long time.
The police now have everything they need to prosecute the offender. In Chester Crown Court, the 31-year-old man pleaded guilty to 2 counts of house burglary and threatening a person with a knife. He was sentenced to 4 years and 10 months in prison. Hayley, Brendan and the whole neighbourhood are pleased the man's off the streets.
There was a lot of thank yous for, like, obviously, you know, us raising the alarm.
The family now always lock the door behind them when they come home.
We have since moved on, and we are very lucky that we are all here in one piece.
The dog keeps us safe, doesn't he, as soon as someone knocks on the door?
Brendan and Hayley played an important role in stopping a criminal in their community, and there are various ways in which we can all look out for each other and help our neighbourhoods defend against crime.
Being a great witness in your community is really important. We know our neighbourhoods better than anyone else, so if you see something that is just slightly off, such as a person in your street that isn't normally there, or you think they're acting suspiciously and could be up to no good, then call the police. This could actually prevent or deter crime from happening.
Social media can be really helpful in raising awareness of situations within a community and encouraging neighbours to take more caution, to protect their property and hopefully prevent further crimes from taking place.
Aside from social media platforms, some neighbourhoods and communities keep in touch with each other with messaging apps. So these can be really effective ways of quick and easy communication with each other. about issues or concerns that could happen in an area or a community.
It's really important, in fact it's vital that that information is shared with the police on some occasions, because we mustn't assume that the police have that intelligence or are constantly monitoring some of the wider social media groups. So if you do have something that's relating to a crime, report it. Even if you don't expect a police response, share the intelligence with us.
Now this is the very definition of criminally bad driving. On the M6 toll road, camera operators were horrified to see this lorry. The driver is reversing away from the pay booths directly into motorway traffic coming the other way. He's not even reversing well either. He's dangerously snaking across the lanes of the carriageway, with shocked motorists having to take evasive action at speed to avoid a catastrophic crash. The reckless driver carried on going the wrong way for around 800 metres before police caught up with him. He was found to be twice over the legal limit for alcohol and was eventually jailed for 6 months for dangerous driving and drink driving. He was also unsurprisingly given a 12-month driving ban. So this driver, who caused a truckload of trouble, seemingly in an effort to avoid paying, ended up paying for it with his freedom. And thankfully, no one else ended up paying for it with their lives. Back in London, undercover cop Steve and his colleagues have 2 suspected female pickpockets under surveillance. They're ready to pounce the second they commit a crime. The thieves have already come close once, but they pulled out at the last moment and Steve's team had to back off.
Your heart rate doesn't go down because you know they're going to do something, you know they are. So you just have to sort of calm yourself down and we wait for the next victims to walk past.
A family of 3, Edwin, Annie and 10-year-old Christopher, are out walking around London. They're on holiday from Canada and have been sightseeing. Christopher has his prized possession with him, a smartphone that had been given to him by his grandma as a present.
He liked it very much. He took many photos.
It's all of my favorite thing is all the nice memory inside.
This CCTV camera at a restaurant overlooks a pavement where the family are about to walk past. Up the road, young Christopher has just put the phone in his backpack and zipped it up. Steve and his team noticed that the family have attracted the pickpockets' interest.
The 2 pickpockets both turned on a dime and they were straight after him. We've followed them and I've seen one of the females pull out a scarf and she's putting it up towards the child, which is odd. You don't normally see pickpockets targeting children.
Just off camera, Steve and his colleague are tracking the pickpockets on the pavement. As the family walk into camera view, Christopher feels something happening to his backpack.
It feels weird, so I turn my body to look at it and my bag is open.
Steve finally sees what he's been waiting for.
I'm watching them unzip the kid's bag. Just put her hand inside.
Now they can strike.
My colleague has gone in, grabbed hold of them. I've grabbed hold of the other one.
The family are stunned.
This is happening very suddenly, so we cannot digest what happened.
Off camera, Steve's colleague explains to the family they are police officers and that they've just stopped 2 pickpockets from stealing Christopher's phone.
We feel unbelievable because it's shameful. This is just a little boy.
It's shocking, but the police, they are so quick because they just open the bag and then the police catch it, just like 5 seconds. Thank you to them because, yeah, they saved my phone.
It fills you with joy, really. It shouldn't do because a crime's taking place, but I'm happy because I know I've stopped it happening. You know, I've stopped that family having their holiday ruined, which is fantastic. And they've both been arrested for an attempted theft, so we're delighted with that.
At the time, nobody involved realises this incident had been captured on camera. After a high five from an impressed onlooker, Steve leads the pickpockets away into custody.
I interviewed them and they both denied the offence. They said they were tourists. Their story was she was walking along, she tripped and she put her hand forward and steadied herself by holding the young boy's bag. Their solicitor was going this story. So then the onus is on us to prove that what we've seen is right.
Steve's an officer with the British Transport Police and usually relies on footage from the rail network's CCTV cameras to back up his case. But this offence happened at the entrance of the station, so he looks for cameras on shops that face that way.
Luckily, where it took place was a Japanese restaurant. I had one camera pointing out of the restaurant. And I was looking in disbelief. I was like, this is exactly where it happened.
And indeed, it captures the attempted theft and disproves their story that the woman stumbled. Steve delves deeper.
So I've got the CCTV, that's great. But then I've contacted a network of European pickpocket officers. When we arrest people that are not known in this country, we can put their IDs out.
If the women are part of an organised crime group, there's a chance they've been arrested before somewhere in Europe. Steve's efforts are rewarded when the results come back.
The main pickpocket had 35 previous convictions. She'd just spent 14 months in prison in Spain for being a member of an organised crime group. She'd been out for, I think, 3 days before she flew into the UK. Her friend had 8 previous convictions, all for pickpocketing, all over Europe. And she had also been in prison in France and flown in the day before they got arrested.
When the two women hear the evidence against them, they change their plea to guilty. Steve makes sure that the sentencing magistrate sees their list of convictions from European countries.
He said he was going to start with a fine, as it was their first offence. He said, but now I've read this, I've realised they're horrendous.
As a result, the 35-year-old woman who had her hand in Christopher's bag was sentenced to 18 weeks in prison. Her 41-year-old accomplice was sentenced to 14 weeks. It's another win for Steve and his colleagues.
We take a team like this out and they go to prison. There's months of them not committing offences. It keeps the crime rate down and it's high fives all around.
Thanks to the work of Steve's team, Edwin, Annie and Christopher went home with just good memories of their visit and the police.
We really appreciate for the job of the police officer because there is no great impact for my son. So yeah, we are still looking forward to visit London again. We like London very much.
Steve's boss, Inspector Sharon Turner at British Transport Police, has advice for anyone travelling in the capital.
Just be mindful of where you're putting your items and where your belongings are. And remember, if it's easy access for you, it's easy access for them.
That's it for today. Until next time, when we see a few more criminals get caught red-handed. It's best we all keep a watchful eye out for crime. Because thieves will steal our cash, our cars, our valuables, just about anything they can get their hands on. Fortunately, there are many other eyes on the lookout too. The police, local councils and businesses are using their own tricks and traps, together with cutting-edge technology to catch the bad guys.
The key was CCTV.
A detective's dream, really.
And the public are using secret cameras to make sure the crooks get their comeuppance.
What are you doing in my house?
Put that down, that belongs to me.
I'm not gonna run away. I'm not gonna run away from this.
Everybody wanted to see that they got caught.
Fantastic. Win.
So anyone who's up to no good had better think twice. They might just get caught red-handed. Today on Caught Red-Handed, Debs has a terrifying experience at home. She wakes up in the middle of the night looks at her CCTV and sees that there's an intruder prowling around downstairs in her house. Frightened, whispering, she calls 999.
Police emergency.
There's somebody in our house.
There's somebody inside your house right now.
Right now.
It was hard to be quiet and not scream.
And the situation is about to get much worse. Also today, Councillor Nick is known as Mr. Flytip. He takes a hard line with people who blight the countryside by illegally dumping waste. Then one day out driving, he himself catches a major offender red-handed.
I just said to my other half, get your phone out, and I want you to film this guy because he's going to dump that.
They film as they drive past. And 20 minutes later, Nick's proved right.
Paint pots had spread paint, spoiling the lane, contaminating the hedge. Really unacceptable.
It turns out this Flytip has done this before, but now he has Mr. Flytip on his tail. One of the most alarming things someone could wake up to is to find their house has been burgled overnight. But there is something even worse. Waking up to find the intruder is still inside their home.
Careful.
Debs lives in Greater Manchester and her house is certainly a full one.
I live with my husband, 2 children, got another one on the way. We have 3 Labradors and a rabbit. Everything's all go in this house.
The family house has nearly as many cameras as mouths to feed. This is thanks to Deb's husband Sean, who works in electronics, bringing his work home.
He tends to like messing about with electrics and he likes to mess about with cameras by just adding to them and creating more and more around the house. I think he's a bit of a geek, really.
They were installed for extra security, but for a long while the cameras never caught anything concerning.
The only thing we ever picked up was the dog opening the gate on his own, and it looked like a ghost. And we've always felt safe here until recently.
The family were about to have a terrifying experience when they saw something on their cameras which definitely wasn't a ghost. It was all too real. It's a weeknight and Debs returns home late in the evening from her job at a hotel.
I did what I usually do, get a brew, watch TV, wind down, took myself to bed.
A few hours later at 3 AM, all the family are asleep. But their multiple CCTV cameras are running. A white car drives past the front of the house. Moments later, in the distance, it parks up. Coming round the corner, 2 shadowy figures approach the family's house. Their back gate camera captures one of the men climbing up and moving the camera by the front gate to point upwards. They've obviously spotted the back gate camera as well. A camera in the garden films them as they disable that too. The 2 men drop into the family's backyard. While one keeps lookout, the other one goes round to the kitchen side door. The family have an internal camera inside the hallway. Their pet rabbit can be seen moving around its cage. Soon, it has unwanted company. While the family sleep upstairs, the intruder starts creeping around the house searching. Debs is about to wake up to one of the most frightening experiences of her life.
Woke up with Sean telling me he could hear someone.
Sean can see their CCTV feed on his mobile.
He passed me his phone and said, look, and I was like, Jesus, there's someone in our house. What do we do?
Sean and Debs don't want to alert the intruder in case it makes the situation worse. But it's not just themselves they're worried about. Their 5-year-old daughter Lily is sleeping in their bedroom tonight, and the dogs are in there too, asleep on the floor. But their 7-year-old son Jack is asleep in another room. Sean and Debs decide they'll both phone 999 on their separate phones. to increase the chances of help arriving quickly. Speaking as quietly as she can, this is Deb's call.
Police emergency.
There's somebody in our house.
Is somebody inside your house right now?
Right now. I've got CCTV at home and I can see them.
Are you in the address on your own?
No, with my husband and my 2 children.
Whereabouts are you?
I'm upstairs in the front bedroom.
You don't want to wake the children up. You don't want the man to hear. It was quite hard to be quiet and not scream.
Right, whereabouts in the house are they?
Yeah, the front.
So I thought maybe they're after the car.
Sean and Deb's car keys are hidden, not in an obvious place, but the man clearly doesn't want to leave without them.
I don't want to put you on the stick. He's going now into the kitchen.
He's moving into the kitchen.
At the same time, Deb's husband Sean is also relaying the intruder's movements to another call taker.
I think he's in the kitchen at the moment.
Okay. Where are you at the moment? In the bedroom?
Yeah, with your wife.
Has your wife been on the phone to us as well?
Yeah.
Keep the line open with me, okay? There are numerous patrols on the way to the address.
Okay.
But now the intruder comes back into the hallway, and he does something very alarming.
He's looking round the coats. He slowly puts his hand on the banister, and I'm watching, thinking, what's he doing? Then his feet come onto the stairs and he slowly starts coming up, and at this point I'm thinking, Jesus Christ.
Sean and Deb's shocked reactions can be heard on their calls.
He's coming upstairs.
He's coming upstairs. He's coming upstairs, okay. Stay inside the room.
That was the really scary part.
He's coming upstairs.
Officers are on the way?
Yeah.
Alright, can you lock the door?
I got my son's in the other bedroom.
Thought he might go into Jack's room first because it's one of the nearer doors to the stairs. You just don't know if he's carrying anything, what's going through his head as well. He really wanted this car, what he would do to get it.
The intruder agonisingly pauses on the stairs, deciding whether to go further.
We were just ready to pounce, to keep the children safe.
Then one of the dogs barks. This appears to give the intruder second thoughts. To the couple's relief, they can see him slowly going back down the stairs.
I was a lot happier knowing that he wasn't as close to the children towards... It's still not safe because he's in the house.
But help is about to arrive. 2 police cars pull up without blue lights and sirens. But the intruder's by the front door and hears them. He flees.
Right, he's bailing. Go around the back.
Outside, the intruder's accomplice runs to the fence and climbs over into next door's garden, with his partner in crime not far behind. Officers come down the side path, and one of them also scales the fence to chase the offenders. Back in the house, the commotion has woken their young daughter, Lily.
It's okay. Go and check Jack's okay, boy, please.
Lily started crying, wondering what was going on. So we just grabbed her and grabbed Jack and told them that we were safe.
They check what's been done to their home.
We just couldn't believe what had actually happened. You know, we're all in our PJs, what we came down to. I saw the panel missing in the back door. Just everything open. He's gone through everything.
Despite multiple police units doing a sweep of the area, the burglars evade capture. And sometime later, they take advantage of no one knowing they'd come in a car, because there's an orange flash of doors unlocking as the men manage to sneak back to their vehicle.
They said that they'd got away. It was scary, to say the least, because we were thinking, are they going to come back? The police said that they were after expensive cars, to which point I just wanted to get rid of the car. I'd only just bought it myself for Christmas. All I wanted was to get it off the drive, because I didn't want them to come back into our house.
Later, it turns out Debs and her family are the most recent victims of an active and highly organised gang. Detective Inspector Roger Smethurst is trying to track down these criminals who are so ruthless they've burgled many houses while inside.
We've got 23 victims. We want to catch these people before something serious happens.
It's going to lead to a tense police raid as officers ram the gates of a suspected hideout. A man with a trailer full of waste is parked in a lay-by on a country lane. 20 minutes later, he's illegally dumped the waste in broad daylight. But he'll wish he hadn't, because he's been filmed by the very last person he would want to witness what he's been up to.